I guess the beginning would start with a spring break trip we took to Puerto Rico. And we only had Bless You at the time, but we had to give him to my sister. And I remember Lucy was sitting on the stoop, handing him over for, I think it was Thanksgiving weekend, something like that. And but when he drove away, Lucy just sat on the stoop of the building for like an hour, bawling. And I was like, okay, I'm never letting her go through that again. So from that point on, every time we traveled, we just brought him along. So.
And then we discovered that he was a really great traveler. As you can see, this is his natural state. We don't sedate him, we don't give him anything foreign, and this is the way they are when they travel on a regular basis. So.
Not to mention we can't stand, like when we're traveling, all we do is worry about them if they're not there. So
that's true. Like we literally
we're
call
less happy,
home
so we're not really on vacation.
100% of the time, yeah.
I think we just like to be a cohesive family and be together all the time. Right. Which is the ideal way to be, I guess.
Right. And he turned out great, but
yeah, we got lucky.
It's really their personalities as well. They love traveling, so we travel with them. If we ever had a dog that didn't like it, we'd be, I think, pretty happy to leave him at home. It's just they really do enjoy the process, the travel, the commute, the different smells, the different foods,
different animals.
Things like that, yeah. They're 7. They're 7 years old.
Yeah, Shuey's about to turn 7. Blessy's already 7. His birthday's around Thanksgiving, so he always gets plenty of turkey.
Yeah, that's his birthday gift, the turkey, essentially. Yeah.
About a year and a half apart.
Right. Bless You came first. About a year and a half later, Shuey came because Bless You was so attached to me personally that Mark kind of felt kind of left out. So I thought maybe get a second boy and he could be attached to Mark, but it didn't work out the way that you always wanted to work out. Shuey's actually extremely attached to his brother and just looks up to his big brother. Anything he does, he wants to do. Anything he doesn't do, then he's like, maybe I shouldn't do that either.
Bless You we got from a reputable pet shop.
Right.
But we were young when we got him. We were still like...
We would never do that again,
18,
but we didn't. I'm from Australia, and the culture there is to pretty much get them from the pet shop.
Florence.
Yes, yes. The two of us met in Florence, Italy. It's kind of weird.
Studying abroad, actually.
Exactly. He came from Long Island. I came from Sydney, Australia, and we met in Florence, Italy. So when we started traveling with the boys, one of the first places we want to go was go back to Florence instead of, it sounds weird, but we want to show them where we met. And in particular, we want to take them to our favorite restaurant in Florence. And they serve these enormous steaks. They're really juicy and just really fantastic.
Oh, they serve a bunch of stuff, but yes. I like the steak.
They like the steak too. So yeah, we took them to Florence and did the touristy thing of the Duomo, the Ponte Vecchio.
That's where it gets a little bit complicated. You gotta look at the policies of the country you're gonna visit, right. And especially if you're gonna cross borders. Sometimes you do a bigger trip as opposed to just one country, and you need to see what their demands are. Get your certificate by the vet accordingly.
Right.
Make sure all their shots are up to date, the ones they need.
If you fly with the pets, no matter if it's domestic or international, usually you always need a veterinary certificate stating that they're in good health, right. And that has to be usually within 30 days of when you fly. So you can't get the veterinary certificate 3 months before and just save it up for your future trips. It usually has to be
it's always
within 30 days.
On a time schedule, for sure. You gotta double check that.
And so there's a lot of planning.
Sometimes you also have to have it translated.
Yeah. It's worth it though.
It's so worth it. It's like there was one place in Italy that said they were pet friendly. We booked a room, but then when we got there, we got a little late. I guess it was like 11 p.m. The concierge was like, "Oh, well, you actually need to book 2 rooms because you have 2 dogs, and we charge like 200 euros extra for like dog policy or whatever."
Right.
And we're like, whatever. Hit the car, drove over to Naples, and found drove a lot more around the city. And then
but then we just found another hotel. It's a little bit more work if you don't plan it.
Comes in, really.
Exactly, but it's fun and it's worth it. And if you have 2 good, calm dogs like this, they just don't care.
We've been on trips without them, but usually it would be because of quarantine. So Australia, they can't go. Aside from the really ridiculously long flight, it's a long quarantine, I believe. If you have everything up to date, it's still at least 30 days.
It's at least 30 days, usually 3 to 6 months, and there's no way of getting around it. Whereas, for example, in the UK, there's a pretty strict.
As well.
Yeah.
But if you have all your shots up to date for 6 months and you can document it, then you can get in.
Yeah, but it's a pretty extensive. You have to plan 6 months in advance. You have to get blood tests, which is really expensive. So we were actually thinking if we took up sailing to see maybe we could sail it, but I don't think that's legal. Yeah. This one loves to sail. Yeah.
He sits on the bow like Leonardo DiCaprio. He just like wee. They can be carried everywhere.
If they resist, we just don't give them a say. But they don't. I mean, especially Bless You, he will do almost anything. I mean, he trusts us implicitly.
Western Europe, they're not allowed on trains.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's why usually if you want to travel with your dogs, you got to book a car.
Pretty much. Well,
even in the States,
Europe.
you can't take them on Amtrak. You can't take them on Greyhound. So.
We have yet to find a single cruise that will allow us to take the boys as passengers, not as cargo. Some cruises will allow you to sort of put them away in a kennel.
We refuse to treat them as cargoes.
Strolling them in the airport, and you shouldn't have them unzipped or anything, so we didn't. They were covered in the stroller, and all of a sudden I hear Bless You going, "Ah!" Like if he could scream, that was what he was doing.
Like,
and I opened the stroller and I was like, "Oh no, should we just front and back simultaneously?" And Bless You was just saying, "Get me out of here." He is disgusting.
He was fine. I just had to clean him up. But
exactly.
Bless You was traumatized. He was like, I ain't going in there with him again.
I'm not sure if it's the most exciting, but even at home in Central Park, they're like a tourist attraction practically. Especially in the winter, they have little boots because, I'm not sure if you heard, but in New York there's some electrified manhole.
Better for your and the only time they get reported is if the owners try to save them and die as well.
Or get injured
a lot of dogs,
or something.
Like at least
that.
I'd say 3 a year.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we put little rubber sneakers on them just in case something happens and they get electrified. That way it gives them some insulation. Mm-hmm. So they were walking in Central Park with their little rubber sneakers. And this tourist, screams out. It was a very quiet park. It was in the middle of winter, and he was
very
like,
much like, think of Cletus from The Simpsons.
But he was like, "Yo, ma, them dogs got shoes on." And we just thought it was so funny, and we were laughing. They were laughing. We were just laughing together. And the boys didn't care. They were just doing their little passage down the.
Yeah, they kind of sound like horse claws.
Yeah, they sound like little horses. Basically, they grew up in this stroller, and we stock up on the stroller as well, just in case they change the make or something. This is, every time we travel with a stroller. And
just it checks in luggage just like a regular child stroller.
Yeah, we check them right before the plane departs, but they feel safe in here. They like being on our lap, but at the same time, they really just feel at home in the stroller.
Right.
So wherever we go, this is home, and this is safety. Sure, absolutely. When we go to different places, they're really the conversation starter, and that's where...
It's actually interesting how it brings out qualities in people.
It really does. Yeah, you always interact.
Yeah, I remember we were in Montreal, and we were like, these people are quite snoopy, actually. And then they'd see the boys, and they'd be like, "Oh, you got Shih Tzus," and they even knew they were Shih Tzus as well. So
right. And it really brings out the best part of the local folks. But when you bring the boys,
it warms them up.
It really does, and it opens it up to a different dimension that you might not have experienced. And locals, talk about their experiences with dogs and their experiences. So you're getting a chance to experience a side of the locals that you might not otherwise have the conversation started to even ask about.
We actually have a poll, so people can say where they'd like to see us go next.
Absolutely.
So we're going to give them maybe 3 options.
Pretty much,
and then they can pick from those.
One would be domestically within the tri-state area, another one would be more U.S., and then the other one would be probably international.